Good day, my scholars. Welcome to my school channel. My name is Alexandra. So in this video, we'll be discussing question tag, won't we? Definitely. So we'll be exploring various concepts in question tag. We'll be looking at the basic pattern of question tag, and then we'll also look at the irregular pattern of question tag. We'll also look at the contribution of intonation and reported speech to the construction or composition of question tag. So I promise it's going to be an exciting tutorial, so stay with us, don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back. Now, welcome back to my school channel, and in this video, don't forget we'll be looking at question tags. Okay, so these are the objectives that I've outlined. We'll be looking at the definition, the basic rules, the irregular pattern, intonation, and question tag, and lastly, reported speech and question tag. Now, let's begin with the first objective, which is the definition of question tag. Now, what is question tag? Now, question tags are short questions or mini questions that are placed at the end of a statement. So there are two things you need to note when defining question tag. The first is that it is a short question, and the second thing is that it is placed after a statement. So let's write that down. Question tags are short questions that are placed at the end of a statement. So this is a good way to define question tag. There are short questions, there are mini questions. And what is its position? It's placed at the end of a statement. Now let's take a look at this example. It is very cold, isn't it? It is not very cold, is it? Now let's take a look at these two examples. The first example, it is very cold, isn't it? It is not very cold, is it? Now this is our tag question. We call it tag question or question tag. Okay, so we can see it after the statement. So this is a good example of question tag. This is the statement. It is very cold, isn't it? Okay, it is not very cold, isn't it? Now let's take a look at the component very well. We'll see that for the first one, it is a combination of auxiliary verb is plus not, and then the pronoun it. And we can see the second one, auxiliary verb minus not, that is the absence of not, and then it. So here we see the composition, auxiliary verb, not or minus not, and the pronoun it. Now here we see that the general rule for the composition of question tag includes an auxiliary verb that matches the main verb. In the sentence, the main verb is, so the auxiliary verb matches the main verb is, and but in opposite, that is, the positive statement must go with the negative tag, and the negative statement must go with the positive tag. And lastly, the pronoun it that refers to the subject. The pronoun it that refers to the subject. So for question tag, the general rule is you have a positive statement. A positive statement is known by the absence of not. Okay, so this is a positive statement, and it must go with a negative tag. We can see the not here is contracted. Okay, it has been shortened. Then you see the second example, we have a negative statement not, which goes with a positive question tag. Okay, so this is the general rule. Now that we've established the first objective, which is the definition of question tag, we'll move on to the basic rules of question tag, and we shall head to the screen. So Now let's outline the basic rule for the construction of question tag or the composition of question tag. Now the first rule you need to note is when the statement is positive, the question tag should be negative. And when the statement is negative, the question tag should be positive. Now let's take a look at some of these examples. It is raining, isn't it? So we can see a positive statement followed by a negative question tag. It is not raining, is it? Okay, so you can see a negative statement which goes with a positive tag. So you are free, aren't you? Okay, so you are free. This is a positive statement, aren't you is a negative question tag. You are not free. This is a negative statement, and we have a positive question tag. Now there's an exception to this rule which we would consider in the next objective, which is the irregular pattern. So we'll consider this under the irregular pattern, and the exception is that we can have a positive statement and then have a positive question tag. So we'll look at that when we get to the next objective. Now let's take a look at number 2 basic rule. The subject in the statement should match the pronoun in the question tag. So the subject must refer to the pronoun in the question tag. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples. Charles broke the glass, didn't he? So we have Charles, and generally we'll acknowledge that Charles is a male person. Okay, so we use he for Charles, didn't he? So we can see that this example is still following the first basic rule. Okay, so we have the positive statement and then we have the negative question tag, didn't he? They can't sing, can they? Okay, so we see they also referring to the subject in the statement. Now let's take a look at the next basic rule. Okay, question tags can be constructed in the present simple or past simple with do, does, or did for lexical verbs. Okay, so we know our lexical verbs are verbs that have senses. Okay, they have meaning. Okay, sleep, we know it's to lay and then be unconscious for a while, and we know dance. So these are verbs that have meaning. So for all our lexical verbs, we use do, does, or did. Now, like, you like food, okay? Don't you? So we use do for like. If we have likes, then it becomes does, okay? So Stephen prefers, now you can see prefers here, ice cream. So instead of do, we use does in this case. So we know the difference between a verb with else and a verb without s, okay? So for a verb without else, we know it is used for the plural form, okay? And for verbs with s, it is used for a singular subject, okay? Stephen is one person, we use prefers, okay? If we are we say we prefer, not prefers, okay? So that's just the difference, okay? So we use do for one without s and does for one with s. So Stephen prefers ice cream, doesn't he? Michael left the mall, didn't he? So now here we have did because it is past tense left, okay? Leave, left, okay? So left we use did, so we have didn't we. Now let's take a look at the next basic rule. Okay, when the auxiliary verb in the statement is the main verb, repeat the auxiliary verb in question tags. Now let's take a look at some of the examples. You are my friend. So we see the auxiliary verb here is the main verb in the sentence. We can have the lexical verb being the main verb, and we can also have auxiliary verb being acting as the main verb in a sentence. Okay, so in this case, we have the auxiliary verb acting as the main verb. You are my friend, aren't you? Okay, so aren't you, we see it's the auxiliary verb is repeated, and we have the negative to complement the positive here. Okay, so this is your book, isn't it? So isn't it is repeated in the question tag. We were at the party, okay? We were at the party, 80. Okay, weren't we? So we can see where is repeated in the auxiliary verb. It wasn't relaxed, was it? Okay, I have a car, haven't I? Okay, so we can see the auxiliary verb repeated in this question tag. So there is an exception to this rule. Okay, there are exceptions to this rule. We have auxiliary verbs in the statement, but then we have a different type of auxiliary verb in the question tag, and we'll take a look at that under the second objective, which is what I consider as the irregular pattern. So stay with us as we continue. Now let's take a look at the next basic rule. When the statement contains a verb phrase, i.e. an auxiliary verb plus a lexical verb, repeat the auxiliary verb in the question tag. Now what does this mean? Now when we have verb phrase, we know verb phrases are a combination of the auxiliary verb plus the lexical verb. So when we have that combination in a statement, we should repeat the auxiliary verb. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the examples we have. Okay, we can hit here, can't we? So we have can and hit. Okay, so can is the auxiliary verb, it is the lexical verb. But then we do not repeat this, or we do not repeat do. What we do is we repeat can. We can eat here, can't we? They haven't left yet. So we have and left being the verb phrase, okay, with the not, okay. Have they, okay? So we are us repeating I have instead of did, okay. You can't drive a car. Okay, you can't drive. So we have can't drive is the verb phrase, and we are repeating can you. Okay, so we are not repeating do. Okay, so that's all for the basic rule of question tag. Now we'll move to the irregular pattern for question tags, and that comes in a longer version, a longer video that I've prepared for you. So all you need to do is you subscribe for it. So go to the link in the description below, click on the My School link, and try to subscribe for the video so that you can enjoy the full package. Okay, thank you for joining us. Do not forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly, tap on the bell notification to get informed as soon as we release the next videos.